This is a corner case first. We are very proud, grateful, stoked to be participating in this season's Madness of Malifaux. Spoilers, we've got that red library keyword. Roll that intro. Welcome to Corner Case. You're in the hobby corner. I'm your host, your beach Asian, and your best friend, Deck. Returning viewers of the channel know that I have been extremely excited for Linh Ly, the new Ten Thunders Master. Wyrd Games has graciously shared content for the upcoming Red Library crew. Let's get into it. Just one thing before we do that, Linh Ly is Vietnamese. I'm not Vietnamese, I'm Filipino, but I am still excited to see more diverse representation of Asians. Historically, and even now, representation of Asians has been pretty narrow. Southeast Asian cultures have largely remained a mystery that includes countries like Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, Malaysia, the Philippines. Some people call us jungle Asians. I like to call us beach Asians, and any representation of beach Asians is so awesome and welcome in my book. Thank you. So, Linh Ly, the new master. This is the core version of the master, the title version having been released at Gen Con. We know Linh Ly is Vietnamese based on the spelling of her name and based on her attire. She's wearing an Ao Dai. More on that later. I did ask around and do some homework. It seems like Lin or Ling are both acceptable pronunciations of her first name, but it sounds like the more Vietnamese content I'm watching sounds like Ling is kind of like the correct way. So we saw Ling Storyteller, title Ling, released at Gen Con, and this is Ling Bibliotecary, aka Library Manager. And one big difference right off the bat is Library Manager Ling does not have story keyword. There is an ability on the front of her card, Librarian, that allows her to hire story keyword models, but for the purposes of story matters mechanics, Ling is excluded from that. We've seen this before on masters like Nicodem and English Ivan, where they have an ability that says that they can hire into another keyword, but that they don't have that keyword on them. It usually excludes them from abilities that it doesn't seem like it would be too broken, but I'm not like that type of player. So Nicodem has like a zombie horde trigger that counts zombie keyword models in base contact with another model. Nicodem himself is not zombie keyword, but can hire zombies. So I assume with the limited information that we have now, that is kind of the purpose of this librarian ability on Ling's card is there are story keyword matters mechanics that she should be excluded from a balance perspective or from a thematic perspective. We already see one on the Miya Murakami card. That's Miya Murakami's Stories from the Red Library ability. Does care about story keyword models. So Corling would be excluded from that. Bibliotecary, of course, includes the crew thematic signature ability Well Versed, which allows them to take a peek at a card once per turn before flipping it, and if they don't like it, they can discard it. Pretty useful ability no matter when you use it, but especially when you use it at the right times. Doesn't hurt. Well Versed. We like it. So now let's go through Ling Bibliotecary's unique abilities. My impression so far on the current information is that this crew can be extremely taxing to play against. First up, we have Booklight Glow. Whenever a ski marker is dropped within 4 inches of Ling, 2 inches from that, an enemy model gains distracted +1. So this crew will just be dishing out the negatives. Then you have Keeper of the Red Library. Ling can reduce damage by up to 2 based on how many ski markers she has within range. So a little bit better than armor, but requires a little bit of setup. But it seems like this crew cares about schemes, so you'll have it. Damage reduction as well. So again, another kind of taxing mechanic. Split Focus, kind of spicy. During the start phase, you can have 2 models within range gain slow to take a general or melee action. So that's actually not really slow because they just don't get to take their actions in sequence, but they still get 2 AP overall for the whole turn. So that's not really a tax. And you'll find later as we go through the rest of the cards that the Red Library crew cares about slow. I think the timing of this ability also makes it really spicy. The start of the turn is usually a pretty tense time. You're planning out your activations, and being able to guarantee that you could do something at the start phase is really, really critical. This doesn't seem like a beat stick kind of crew, but if you were just 1 or 2 points away from finishing the job at the end of a turn, maybe you can like finish the job at the start of the turn instead. If you needed markers here or there, there's a lot of implications to sneaky things you can do at the start of the turn. So pretty spicy. I don't know how often it's going to be useful, but I think when it's useful, it's going to be really memorable. So split focus, spicy. Moving to the back of Ling's card, she has the Ancient Words attack action. Really versatile attack action, not unique to her, but she can drop a scheme or deal slow off of it. So pretty critical triggers for the running of this crew. Bibliothecary's tactical actions seem to offer like a lot of great utility. None of these actions seeming to scream, spam me in every single encounter setup. So it seems like she's got like a nice mixed bag of tools, can deal with a variety of situations with the tactical actions on her card. The first of which is Double Shift. Title Molly has a similar tactical action, allows a model that hasn't yet this game activate again. Could come in pretty clutch if you have like a beater or a well-positioned model that needs to get something done. Double Shift, pretty good. Lost Knowledge is marker removal with an upside of 2 cards. Other models have this. I think Molly, Jedza, and Zoraida have it. And in and of itself, I don't think that using a Master AP to try and draw 2 cards desperately is something I would normally do. But if you needed to deny schemes, if you were in that situation where you need to deny schemes, then that 2 card draw is pretty welcome. A New Cry from a Broken Heart. This short story of a tactical action here, Ling can push a ski marker up to 6 inches, and enemy models that it passes through have to take a willpower duel or take slow. The big 12-inch range makes this action really flexible. If it's mid-game and she's decently up the board, she has more than a few options for targets usually. And it can either create more slow, which matters for the rest of the crew, or it can attack the opponent's hand, so giving her a hand attack option if the opponent's crew cares about that. And lastly, her unique bonus action, Control of the Red Library. It's worded very specifically, and at minimum, I think what this means is that she can drop a scheme marker anywhere within 4 inches. However, it does seem like this ability has room for a lot of shenanigans, and I'm definitely not seeing them right now. But one example I can think of is her Booklight Glow ability, which hands out Distracted, cares that a scheme marker is dropped and within 2 inches of an enemy. However, this bonus action does sound like it has room for a lot of shenanigans. I'm definitely not seeing them all now, but with my current information and a game IQ, I can think of one immediate synergy, and that is with her Booklight Glow ability, cares that a ski marker is dropped within 4 inches. So the bubble for this Control of the Red Library bonus action is 4 inches. So let's say that Ling has a model, an enemy model 4 inches behind her, decides to, with Control of the Red Library, drop a ski marker 4 inches in front of her. She can treat both the ski marker and the enemy as being in base contact with her, which would put them within 2 inches, which means that she effectively can hand out Distraction with this action across 8 inches. So that's one potential shenanigans, but it's hard for me to believe that that is like the coolest, best way to do it. So I assume that you're going to be using this bonus action pretty much every turn. So let me know what you guys think this is for in the comments. I'm not currently a competitive player, so I'm not as plugged in to all the micro shenanigans that tend to happen in our beloved world of foe. Okay, so next up we have the henchman, which I did a little homework, and the pronunciation should be mup map. The little arrow over the A is more of like an sound, and the dot below kind of each A represents a down tone, so mup map. means chubby or fat from like what I was able to ascertain. Starting at the front of the card, immediately on this big base boy is a Slow Matters aura ability. Beauty Sleep at the end of its activation heals 2 for every model with slow within 4. So pretty big aura, and as we've seen already on just Ling's card, slow, pretty good access within this crew. Next ability, Guardians of Knowledge. So Map can tank wounds for red library models within 6. That's an absolutely huge aura. I think if you factor in the fact that Map is hard to wound, has the healing at the end of the round, can dish out slow themselves, they have access to stones. Definitely it's like kind of a durable unit. I'm kind of sussed about just the 8 wounds and like trying to play the tank role. But at the very least, I think Map can make Ling defensible. I don't know with my current information what big threats or big targets are also part of this red library keyword. But with what I know, Map seems like pretty good defensive option for the whole crew. So again, another tax. This crew feels really taxing to play against so far. At this point, I'm going to focus on unique abilities. So the next unique ability, if you look on the back of his card, Take a Look, a repositioning ability. It's got a range of 6 inches. It can push a model up to its move, and it requires the setup of any marker within LOS of the target. So that could be like a corpse marker or something, or a ski marker, but it's a pretty flexible reposition. It can heal or it can cause the model to suffer 2 damage at Map's choice. So really flexible positioning tool. Based on what I saw on Ling's card, she's got a lot that she wants to do. So it looks kind of like she would be relying on push or movement from her crew, and this seems like a good option. You'll see when we get to the Bookkeeper that they also have some movement tricks as well. So it looks like potentially you can pour Ling's AP potentially into more tactical actions and try to get more done. And movement can kind of happen without necessarily having to spend AP in turns 2 and above. Helped by Booklights. So basically you can move conditions from a friendly model to an enemy model at a +1. So this is really useful for condition-based crews if you wanted to pass off that burning or poison, but there's also like a synergy with potentially if you're really cheesing it, Ling can do her split focus, have 2 models like take a general or melee action to take slow, and then Map can like activate early, move that slow to an enemy model, then actually you bought like 3 actions with that model if that model really needed it. So if you did that to like some beater, some Howard Langston, if you will, of a model, that could be useful that way. But it looks like this is pretty good like condition removal, but also you could cheese it for like AP efficiency if you wanted to. First, in general, I'd like to say that I really like Arcane Reservoir being more available in M3E across the board. My recollection of M2E was you could only get it like very rarely, mostly like in an upgrade for Arcanists. You'd like staple it to your master and just enjoy +1 hand size for the rest of the game. All games forever, but by putting it on a cheap body, it allows the opponent to interact with it more easily. So they can stop it if they want to, which makes it a less easy choice. By putting it on a totem specifically, it kind of makes Arcane Reservoir a requirement of that master's playstyle. So I think the way they've implemented it across more crews, and in some cases in a mandatory way, but always easily interactable, I like Arcane Reservoir on cheap bodies. I think it's a good design choice, and I like it. Otherwise, this bunny is super defensible. It has a double negative on any opposed duels, and its evasive allows it to dodge all blast damage. Probably the main thing that you're doing with the Jade Rabbit is the Moonlight tactical action. So you target a ski marker within range, and then that ski marker has a 2-inch aura where enemy target numbers are increased by +2. Title Cornelius has wanted posters, which is like a 10-inch aura that increases target number by +2 for enemies. But this is really cool because, again, like I mentioned before, it's pretty interactable by the opponent. So if your opponent really doesn't like it, they can target the ski marker and remove the ski marker in order to deal with that +2. They can interact. It's not just you have to kill my master or else all your shit is too hard. It's you have to spend resources to turn it on and your opponent can spend resources to turn it off. And I think that's a really good play experience. So I like this model a lot. The question I have is if it should be able to stack. I assume that it should not be able to stack. The way it's worded, it sounds like increased target number by +2. However, it does not say a maximum. So I don't know if overlapping auras causes stacking. But at the very least, if Jade Rabbit has 2 actions or if you cheesed it up to 3, then you should be able to get a couple points on the board where target numbers are inflated. So very taxing model for just 2 stone, or in this case free, but Jade Rabbit, really sick. I like it. Last but not least is the 6 stone minion, the Bookkeeper. So my first impression is that this model is wild value town. So it seems really value town, but also doesn't seem broken by any means. Just seems like really good value. Like I would not leave home without at least 1. They start with shielded 1. They can scheme practically anywhere because they have inverted steps and don't mind me. And they also grant movement of 2 inches to 2 models when they activate. So that's what I mean, where Ling can pretty much, I think, almost never spend any AP moving. So if you have like a couple movement tricks on the board and this one is passive, then you can kind of just get that movement for free. So real value town on the front of the card for the Bookkeeper. If you swing around to the back of the card, they also have some pretty sweet attack actions. Curse Translation, not unique to the Bookkeeper, but no gun symbol and does blast, has an increased damage ceiling with the presence of ski markers or can drop ski markers at that range. Bookworm, useful as a rummaging effect. And because of the efficiency bonus action, even if they took slow for whatever reason from the crew, they could still move and then efficiency bonus action to drop a scheme. So these guys are going to get the scheme done no matter what. They got to drop it. It's going to happen somehow. So Bookkeeper, real wild value town. Pretty excited for the other sculpts. So those were the spoilers. How do you guys feel about the new Red Library stuff? I know I'm still as excited as I was before, perhaps more excited seeing how much utility is built into this crew. But you guys are watching Corner Case, which means that you're not leaving here without at least a little perspective. So let's move on to the next topic, and that's the Vietnamese Ao Dai. I want to celebrate that Linh Ly is wearing the Ao Dai in both representations of her title and no title, and I want to commend Wyrd for making this advancement in representation of Asians. No judgment, but in order to illustrate my point about how far Wyrd design has come in terms of representing Asians, I have to use an existing model. So for those of you who love it, no offense and no judgment, but vintage Misaki. Misaki is Japanese, but the vintage model of Misaki is wearing a Chinese qipao with a boob window. I won't say any more on that, but I'll move on to my point, which is that clothes are history. Clothes are culture, and they mean something to the people, the cultures that wear them. The Vietnamese Ao Dai, romanized as Aodai, but pronounced Ao Dai, is very much a product of Vietnamese geopolitical history throughout the years. While contemporary designs vary greatly, and I know that at a glance, it may resemble the Chinese qipao, I think the defining features of the Vietnamese Ao Dai are the slightly high split collar, the 2-panel design for the body of the dress with the concealed fasteners on the side, the 3/4 length sleeves, and pants. Its earliest records start in the 1700s, though its actual origin is unknown. During the 1700s, it was a very functional garment, very much a functional garment of the time, so it was not as long as it is today, as contemporary stitching technology has allowed for longer stitches, bigger pieces of fabric to construct a longer garment. It was a functional garment. It was loose. It wasn't the slender and iconic symbol of Vietnamese feminine beauty that it is today. While I won't go too specifically into the detailed dates, I will say that the next 2 centuries saw a ton of evolution to the Ao Dai, mostly driven by the politics and the technology. So I told you that this garment started off as loose, dark colors, functional. You know, there was Early on, in that 1700s to 1800s period, a difference in political opinion between the North and the South of Vietnam. The North more friendly to China, so their traditional clothing reflected that. They wore more of like the Chinese robes, but the Vietnamese in the South, they weren't like that, and they were wearing pants. So as you see, pants is a iconic staple of what we know as Ao Dai today. What we know as Ao Dai today, the design, was mostly developed in the 1900s, and specifically around the 1930s, where some designers were influenced by the French colonists and the French fashion culture. So another example of politics influencing the Ao Dai, it was influenced by that colonialism, and subsequently in the 50s, it was actually banned by the Vietnamese government. It was seen as a symbol of accepting the capitalist ideals. So the Ao Dai has changed form from the 1700s to the 1900s to what we know today, and a lot of that evolution is actually coming from politics. So when next time you see an Ao Dai, as much as it is a symbol of feminine beauty of Vietnam, it's actually telling a story about Vietnamese geopolitical history. Showing these garments without any further sexual color or interpretation spun onto them is really important. And so I'm very happy to see it just show up in the world of Malifaux. Now, I'm not Vietnamese again, so I encourage you to do research on your own. And I wish I could have spoken to that in more earnest, but because I'm Filipino, I can speak about one Filipino garment in earnest, and I'm going to use my platform to do this. So if you're still with me, I can speak about this, and I would like to. This is a spoken history that was passed down to me about the Filipino Barong Tagalog. The Barong Tagalog is traditional Filipino menswear. It is a semi-transparent dress shirt that is woven from the local pineapple fibers. It was told to me that the Spanish colonists enforced a strict dress code on Filipinos, forcing them to wear so-called native clothes in order to enforce the social hierarchy, enforce the inferiority of Filipinos to the Spanish. Additionally, I was told that the practical function for the transparent shirt was actually to discourage the concealment of weapons. So the original purpose of the Barong Tagalog, what we now know as traditional Filipino men's formal wear, the original purpose was to keep the status quo. But we wear this garment proudly now. It no longer has that same meaning. We've taken that meaning back. It's no longer our prison onesie. It's now a story of our people. So next time you see a Chinese chi pao or a Vietnamese Ao Dai, just think a little. It's not just a symbol of Asian feminine beauty. It is very likely telling a very interesting story about the history, about the culture of that people. This has been Corner Case. Hope you guys had fun. Thank you one last time to Wyrd for sharing the Madness of Malifaux spoilers with y'all. And Wyrd has been doing a great job pushing more representation of women, of other cultures. And so I'm really happy to be supporting this game, this company, this community with all of you. Please like and subscribe, join the Discord. Thank you to all of our Patreon subscribers. It has been growing pains, and we really appreciate y'all's support every day. Thank you guys so much. Goodbye.
Please like and subscribe. We've been through enough.